The paranormal world is filled with countless accounts of ghost sightings, but few are as intriguing or well-documented as the experience of Harry Martindale, a plumber who had a life-changing encounter with what he believed to be Roman soldiers while working in the basement of the treasurer's house in York, England, in 1953. The sighting remains one of the most compelling cases of a paranormal encounter, not only because of its vividness, but also because it aligns with historical knowledge of the area in a way that Martindale, a young apprentice at the time, could not have known. This video will delve deep into the details of Martindale's experience, the historical context, and the aftermath of the event, as well as examine possible explanations for what he saw. The Treasurer's House is one of York's most historic buildings, dating back to medieval times. Located near York Minster, it was originally the residence of the treasurers of York Minster, although much of what stands today is from later periods. It is a fascinating building that has evolved over centuries, but beneath its grand rooms and decorative facade lies a deep connection to an ancient Roman past. York was known as Eboracum during Roman times, and was a major military and administrative center for the Roman Empire in Britain. It was the capital of the province of Britannia Inferior and housed a significant Roman presence, including the 6th Legion, also known as Legio Victrix. Evidence of Roman occupation can still be found beneath the streets and buildings of modern York. The Treasurer's House is known to sit on top of what was once part of a Roman road, an ancient thoroughfare believed to have been used by Roman soldiers during their time in Eboracum. While this historical connection is well established today, it was far less known to the general public in the 1950s. In 1953, Harry Martindale was an apprentice plumber aged 18, tasked with a routine job in the cellar of the treasurer's house. The cellar was dimly lit and slightly foreboding, with its low ceilings and cold stone walls, but for Martindale, it was just another day of work. His job was to install a heating system, which required him to set up ladders and drill into the walls of the cellar. Martindale had no knowledge of the building's history, nor was he particularly interested in anything paranormal. But what happened to him that day would change his life and become a story that has captivated paranormal investigators and skeptics alike. While Martindale was working on a ladder, drilling into the wall, he suddenly heard a strange sound that at first he couldn't place. It was a distant, faint sound of what seemed like a horn or trumpet, similar to the kind used by Roman armies. As he tried to comprehend the noise, it grew louder, and to his utter disbelief, he saw what looked like a horse appear through the wall of the cellar, followed by soldiers, Roman soldiers in full regalia, marching in formation. There was something off about the scene. They were not walking on the floor of the cellar, but seemed to be walking knee-deep in the floor, as though the ground was higher than it is today. Martindale later realized that they were walking along the level of an old Roman road that lay beneath the cellar floor. The soldiers seemed oblivious to Martindale's presence. They carried on their march as if he wasn't there. Martindale described the soldiers in detail. They wore plumed helmets, carried large round shields, and were armed with short swords or gladii. Their clothing appeared worn and dirty, as though they had been marching for a long time. Their appearance was not the glamorous depiction of Roman soldiers often seen in history books or films. These were battle-weary, ordinary soldiers. The soldiers also appeared to be led by an officer on horseback, which was the first figure Martindale had seen emerge from the wall. Shocked and terrified, Martindale fell from his ladder and scrambled into a corner, unable to move or speak. He watched in awe and fear as the soldiers continued their march, their expressions serious and focused. They moved in complete silence except for the sound of their gear and the faint echo of the horn. The entire event lasted just a few moments, but for Martindale, it felt like an eternity. When the last soldier passed through the wall on the other side of the cellar and the apparition was over, Martindale fled the building in panic, leaving his tools and ladder behind. He ran upstairs and told the caretaker what he had seen. To his surprise, the caretaker simply nodded and said, "You've seen the Roman soldiers," as if this were a common occurrence. What makes Harry Martindale's story particularly compelling is not just the vividness of the encounter, but the historical accuracy of the details he described. At the time of his sighting, Martindale had no formal education in Roman history and knew little about the Roman occupation of York. However, the uniforms and equipment he described, details like the shape of the shields, the design of the helmets, were remarkably consistent with what historians now know about Roman soldiers of the period. The fact that the soldiers appeared to be walking below the level of the cellar floor is significant. Archaeological excavations later revealed the remains of a Roman road several feet below the modern-day floor of the cellar, exactly where Martindale had seen the soldiers marching. One of the most striking aspects of the encounter is how specific the sighting was. Martindale did not see vague, shadowy figures. He saw detailed, three-dimensional beings that moved in a natural and realistic manner. This level of detail is unusual in most ghost sightings, which tend to involve fleeting or indistinct apparitions. The 6th Legion, Legio Victrix, was stationed in Eboracum for a significant period of time, and it is believed that the soldiers Martindale saw were members of this legion, likely on a routine patrol along one of the city's main roads. The fact that these soldiers appeared to be going about their usual duties, seemingly unaware of Martindale's presence, has led some researchers to suggest that this was not a typical ghostly apparition but rather a residual haunting, a kind of playback of past events, imprinted on the environment and occasionally replayed under the right conditions. Harry Martindale's experience quickly attracted attention, and his story was covered in local newspapers and later by national media. Despite the attention, Martindale was reluctant to capitalize on the experience and never sought fame or financial gain from his encounter. In fact, he was often hesitant to discuss the event publicly, as he feared ridicule and disbelief. However, over the years, the story of the Roman ghost of the treasurer's house became one of the most famous ghost stories in Britain, and Martindale's testimony was regarded as credible by many paranormal researchers due to his sincerity, the consistency of his story, and the historical accuracy of the details. Martindale went on to live a quiet life, and though he was often asked to recount his experience, he never embellished or changed his account. He passed away in 2014, having always stood by his story. Over the decades, numerous theories have been proposed to explain what Harry Martindale saw that day in the cellar of the treasurer's house. These theories range from traditional paranormal explanations to more scientific ones. The most widely accepted paranormal explanation for Martindale's encounter is that it was a form of residual haunting. Residual hauntings are believed to occur when intense emotional or traumatic events leave an imprint on a location, which can then be replayed under the right conditions. Unlike intelligent hauntings, where spirits are thought to interact with the living, residual hauntings are more like recordings of past events that play on a loop. The soldiers, in this case, were unaware of Martindale's presence and simply continued their march along the ancient Roman road, oblivious to the fact that centuries had passed. Some researchers believe that residual hauntings are linked to electromagnetic fields, or other environmental factors that may trigger the playback of these events. The cellar of the treasurer's house, with its stone walls and underground location, could be a perfect environment for such phenomena. Another theory is that Martindale experienced a time slip, a phenomenon in which individuals briefly step into another time period. In this scenario, Martindale may have temporarily glimpsed Roman York as it existed nearly 2,000 years ago. Time slip experiences are often reported in areas with a long history, and York, with its Roman, Viking, and medieval heritage, is one of the most ancient cities in England. Proponents of the time slip theory suggest that certain locations act as thin places where the boundary between past and present is weak, allowing for brief overlaps in time. However, this theory remains highly speculative and is not widely accepted by mainstream scientists. Skeptics have offered psychological explanations for Harry Martindale's experience. Some psychologists suggest that the event could be attributed to pareidolia, a psychological phenomenon where the mind responds to stimuli by perceiving familiar patterns, such as faces or figures, in random data. Skeptics say this could explain why Martindale perceived soldiers when he was likely tired or stressed while working in the dimly lit cellar. But this explanation falls short for many obvious reasons. The fact that he was able to describe what they were wearing, right down to the type of shields they were carrying, and the helmets they wore, makes this explanation very unlikely. Others propose that the encounter was a hallucination, possibly triggered by environmental factors, such as low light, the isolation of the cellar, or even the physical exertion of drilling. Stress and fatigue can sometimes lead to altered states of consciousness, making individuals more susceptible to experiencing hallucinations. Again, however, Martindale's detailed account, including his vivid descriptions of the soldiers' appearance and behavior, suggests a level of clarity that typically does not accompany hallucinations. Another theory posits that Martindale's experience could be linked to mass hysteria or suggestibility. Given that Martindale had been working in a historic building known for its ghost stories, it is possible that his mind was influenced by the environment and the stories he might have heard. This could lead to a phenomenon where a person becomes so immersed in the idea of the supernatural that they begin to perceive experiences that align with those expectations. However, this theory does not adequately explain the level of detail or historical accuracy in Martindale's account. The story of Harry Martindale and his encounter with the Roman soldiers has continued to captivate both the public and paranormal enthusiasts alike. The treasurer's house has become a focal point for ghost tours in York, and the tale of the Roman soldiers is often recounted as one of the city's most famous ghost stories. Martindale's experience has inspired numerous investigations by paranormal researchers and historians, eager to understand the underlying factors behind his sighting. The case has been featured in various books, documentaries, and television programs dedicated to exploring the paranormal, further cementing its place in ghost lore. Despite the various theories and explanations, many continue to believe that Martindale's experience was genuine, a remarkable glimpse into York's rich history and the possibility of encountering echoes of the past. Harry Martindale's encounter in the cellar of the treasurer's house remains one of the most fascinating and credible accounts of a ghostly encounter with historical significance. The combination of detailed descriptions, historical accuracy, and the context of the location makes this case stand out among the multitude of ghost stories. Whether one views the event as a residual haunting, a time slip, a psychological phenomenon, or a mere hallucination, the lasting impact of Martindale's experience is undeniable. As society continues to grapple with the mysteries of the supernatural, the story of the Roman soldiers serves as a poignant reminder of the connections between the past and present and the possibility that in certain moments and places, The veil between these worlds may grow thin enough to allow us to catch a glimpse of history itself. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please remember to like and subscribe.